I swirled my wine deliberately, observing the crimson liquid ripple against the crystal. My wife, technically ex-wife now, sat opposite me. Perfectly manicured fingers clasped elegantly on the table as though she'd already claimed victory. "I've told you before," she announced loudly enough for neighboring tables to overhear. "Remain in your lane with modest salaries. You appear foolish discussing investments as if you comprehend them." Her mother responded instantly. "Men such as yourself," she hissed, patting her mouth with a linen napkin, "shouldn't discuss finances whatsoever. It's humiliating." Her father stared down at his steak. He didn't need to participate. They possessed sufficient disdain for everyone present. I swallowed, not the degradation, but the impulse to grin. The phone buzzed in my lap. A notification appeared. Portfolio manager prepared to relocate their $270 million assets immediately. Or should I allow them to continue speaking? I darkened the screen. I allowed them to continue speaking. I didn't marry into privilege because I required rescuing. I married because I was foolishly in love. The first time we encountered each other, she mentioned her family operated a modest investment firm. That modest firm was a multi-generational trust controlling numerous blue-chip investments and several offshore portfolios. I was indifferent. I cared about how she laughed when something authentically surprised her. Asymmetrical and raw, as though she wasn't raised behind iron gates. I developed software for financial analytics. Not prestigious, not glamorous, but it addressed a need. Old wealth was suffocating under incompetent advisors pretending they grasped technology. I digitized their trust administration, automated their documentation, and enhanced risk algorithms that made veteran bankers hesitate. Her father valued me then. Her mother accepted me. She loved me until she ceased. Wealth doesn't corrupt individuals. It exposes their essence. The first betrayal began subtly. I entered the study to retrieve my charger. Her voice drifted through the partially open door, gentle and precise. "He believes he's contributing. Allow him. Once the prenuptial agreement is executed, he can entertain himself with his trivial projects." A silence. The unmistakable sound of a champagne glass being placed down. "Naturally, I'll be the beneficiary. He's valuable presently, and I appreciate that he attempts." Valuable. I remember abandoning the charger on the floor and departing silently. I didn't confront her, not from weakness, but because that was the instant the calculation became clear. They believed they controlled me. I discovered more through observation than confrontation. The documents they required me to sign for structural conformity actually transferred asset decision authority to me temporarily so I could integrate their portfolios with the software. Their attorneys assumed I wouldn't examine the details beyond the highlighted portions. I didn't examine it once. I examined it 63 times. In the circumstance of legal dissolution, asset authority transferred to the administrator of the software's controlling license. That administrator was me. Discreetly, I established 2 shell corporations. Then I embedded a clause modification into the software's infrastructure concealed beneath risk mitigation protocols. If activated, it would automatically redirect portfolio designations to the shell corporations. Their attorneys labeled it a redundancy mechanism. I labeled it retribution insurance. I waited. I observed as the degradation evolved from subtle to overt. Her mother's insults intensified with every glass of Bordeaux. Her father ceased viewing me as a business associate and began viewing me as an impediment. The dinner was predictable. A public platform, a captive audience. Affluent people relished the spectacle of degradation. She reclined, swirling her chablis. "You're fortunate I married you," she declared. "Otherwise, you'd still be marketing your insignificant applications to startups, not pretending to belong in legitimate boardrooms." Her mother laughed quietly and venomously. "Honestly, darling, certain men require reminders of their position." I acknowledged this. Then I retrieved my phone and typed one word, "move." My portfolio manager didn't reply with a query. The transition had been arranged for 9 months. They executed the procedure like a precise operation. $270 million in equities and bond investments began transferring from the family trust. $42 million in real estate positions separated from their primary accounts. Their offshore liquidity. It transferred into my shells seamlessly. The software handled the remainder. Irreversible once initiated, legally impenetrable. I positioned the phone face down on the linen tablecloth. Her mother noticed initially. Her email alerts appeared across her smartwatch display. Tiny crimson flashes of alarm. She raised her wrist, eyes constricting. What? What is happening? Her father checked his phone. His jaw clenched. He looked at me, a man who finally recognized the stranger seated opposite. My wife blinked. What have you done? I didn't respond. I simply raised my glass and drank. Alarm arrived in successive waves. She seized her phone, scrolling with frenzied fingers. Portfolio access blocked. Trust permissions withdrawn. Authority reassigned. Her father rose, his voice shaking. You cannot. Oh, I can, I stated, the initial words I'd spoken all evening. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You desired someone insignificant, I said softly. Someone who wouldn't discuss finances. Her mother's complexion was ashen. You're deceiving us. My phone vibrated again. A screenshot of the final ledger transaction. Authorized, executed, permanent. I slid the device across the table. Her mother ceased breathing momentarily. Her father collapsed into his chair. My wife regarded me as though I were a stranger, which was paradoxical. She'd never bothered to understand me whatsoever. There exist 2 categories of power. Power that's inherited and power that's acquired. Inheritance makes you boisterous. Acquisition makes you silent. I departed the restaurant without settling the bill. It wasn't rebellion, simply symmetry. By dawn, legal representatives would arrive like scavengers. They'd protest breach, fraud, theft, but they'd discover every authorization, every timestamp, every line of digital authority they'd approved themselves. They treated me like fixtures. They forgot fixtures can incinerate the residents. I didn't bother issuing a statement. My silence would serve as their announcement. That evening, I slept more soundly than I had in years. Not because I triumphed, but because I finally grasped the reality. You don't discipline people by yelling at them. You discipline them by allowing them to believe they've already prevailed, precisely until the instant you claim everything they never imagined you could.